Well, good evening, everybody, to a recorded episode of Communications and Cigars. And you know what? I'm going to apologize in advance. You are watching Communications and Cigars, but you know what? This is going to be part two of our installation special and everything like that. But you know what? I hate shipping. That's what I'm going to tell you about. I hate shipping. I have some items that we're going to be on order for doing our next part two of Communications and Cigars, the installation series, which was going to be going ahead and breaking down into the power distribution and kind of running cables and everything like that. And guess what? My stuff didn't arrive. So I thought, hey, the next best thing that we can do is to kind of take some pictures and to kind of go ahead and get them in there. So, without a delay, welcome to part two of our installation series on Communication Cigars, where we talk about and look about installing radios and stuff into a vehicle. In this case, a 2022 Ram 1500. Now, we're just using Ram 1500 because guess what? That's the one that we had, which was my truck there. So, that's what we kind of been working on. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. As always, Communications and Cigars is always on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central on our YouTube channel here, obviously, Communications and Cigars. There are some times where, guess what? We're just not going to go ahead and be available. We might have a recorded episode or something like that. So this is kind of a hybrid episode, if you will want to go ahead and say there. But I do thank everybody for tuning in. And once again, we do also want to go ahead and say thank you to our sponsor, JJK Communications. JJK Communications does sponsor Communications and Cigars. And they're able to go ahead and provide us with equipment and all that other stuff that we need in order to kind of continue to produce the show on a daily basis and not have to go ahead and do any sort of patron or anything like that. We try to keep the show educational, and we try to keep it about multiple topics. Remember, we are non-brand specific, and we are also non-type of radio specific. So that's right. Here we talk about amateur, marine, aviation, CB, LMR, public safety, those kind of things like that. We do have other shows planned upcoming in regards to kind of some of that communication stuff on there. Now, if you want to send or you have questions, we had a few people that had questions coming off the first episode and a lot of great comments. We thank you for tuning in. Don't be afraid to hit us up here. Communications-cigars at jjkcom.com. Once again, communications-cigars, all one word, at jjkcom.com. Also, not to mention, we do have our podcast. We are working on some podcasts here coming up here. That's going to be the MCOM Chat podcast. It's just been so busy with a lot of things on there that we haven't had a good chance to sit down and cut some more episodes in there. So stay tuned for that. So let's jump into it. We're going to skip a cigar talk because I want to make this kind of a little bit of a shorter one tonight. Just because I don't want to say we don't have content, but it's kind of one of those situations where we don't have the parts. So I want to talk about the parts that we're going to do. We're going to install those parts, and then we're going to go and probably take a picture of the stuff later afterwards. But one of the biggest things about a vehicle install is actually coming down to power. Power. And I will tell you what, cigarette lighters, outlets, and stuff like that, they've come a long way since before, but they're not plentiful in vehicles. They really shouldn't be used to power radios. Really, your 50-watt radio is going to draw 15 amps, at least. On there, and they could put out weird power. They could have power glitches. They could have power spikes, everything like that. That kind of gets into that little bit of a dangerous area. As a matter of fact, I even know some cigarette lighter outlets that actually stay active even when the car's turned off. So you think you're going ahead and you'll be like, oh, okay, hey, great, I got my cigarette lighter, got my radio here and everything like that, and guess what? It's still powered on there. So, also too, before I know a couple people are messaging here. Why do I have the headphones on? Why am I using that tonight? Well, I was giving a presentation and a talk to some people here about some things that people had. A group of people got together and said, "Hey, can we pick your brain about some radio stuff?" And I said, "Sure." And it was kind of a good in-depth discussion. We talked about the digital modes of P25, Next-Gen, DMR, Fusion, D-Star. We kind of talked about all the different digital modes out there. We just kind of kept more so on the LMR side, and talked a little bit about the amateur side, but really cleared up a lot of confusion that people had on there and stuff like that, and kind of got down to the brass tacks and the nitty gritty on actually how radios are. A lot of people think P25 is Motorola. It's not. It's a CAI, Common Air Interface, just like DMR is, and all those kind of things like that. Anyways, that's what this headset is for there. So people who are instant messaging me, that's what it is. All right, getting back into it. So power. Um, you always want to run to the battery. All the manufacturers of radios, whether it be Motorola, Kenwood, Yaesu, ICOM, EF Johnson, Tate, whatever else that's out there, even some of the Chinese brand radios that are out there, they will go ahead and tell you run directly to the battery. They never will say to cut corners. Now, I know some people tap off the fuse box. That's not a good idea either, because that fuse may be a 15 amp fuse, but is that wire capable to handle that current and amperage on there? And I know you would say, like, well, duh, it's a 15 amp fuse. Now, these days, there's a lot of different things that goes on in cars. I mean, they are not a standard easy installation anymore. There's a lot of things you have to deal with, and that's kind of part of why we're doing this series on here. So without further ado, let's take a look at where we should be tapping off the power, or will be tapping off the power in this project series that we're doing here. So on your screen here, you see there is the fuse box that's usually located right next to battery. Now, right away, people are like, well, John, the battery's right there. Let's tap off the battery. Well, okay, let me back up here. One thing that I found out, which I really wasn't aware of, is that with newer cars these days, especially the cars that have the auto start stop. Now, I'm not talking hybrid now. I'm talking about auto start stop. So you pull up to the, let's say you pull up to the intersection with the light, you put your foot on the brake. What's going to happen? The car's going to go ahead and the engine's going to stop running. The minute you let your foot off the brake, the engine starts up again. Believe it or not, they actually have a secondary battery right next to the main battery. And in some cases, you may not even be able to see that secondary battery because it's usually hidden by a post or something. But when that secondary battery goes, it's going to pull off the main battery. So that's kind of where it's like, going directly to the battery, good or not. And I guarantee you there's going to be people who are going to see this, who are going to argue, you go to the battery and stuff, it doesn't matter about this. Correct, it doesn't. But I always like to look 2-3 steps deeper into a problem or deeper into the issue. All right, if my radio flips out and I leave my radio on directly connected and it's going to drain the battery, is there going to be an auto shutoff in there? Well, no, not unless you put something in there. Okay, so what would then be the cascading effect? Or I like to say the ripple effect when we're dealing with the battery here. So that's why I say don't go to the battery, go to the fuse box. Really nice big huge fuse box there. You can't miss it. It's got the symbols on there. It will reference in the manual. But you know what? You don't even need the manual. You really don't. Because as you see off that positive post, that B plus post on the battery, heavy duty cable and wiring going through to that distribution box, which that is really your hood, under the hood, whatever you want to call it, fuse box on there. It's that power distribution box. And there's going to be some things for fuses that are in that box that are not on the one or in the one underneath your wherever it may be in a vehicle now. They're literally all over the place now. I don't even know where to begin on some of those things on there. But let's go ahead and take a look under this cover of the box here. So as you see there, I kind of did a little bit of a clip of it. I didn't show anything because as you see there's a lot of fuses, there's a lot of relays. And in addition, they're not just like the mini ATC blade fuses. They're kind of those square kind of fusers. I don't know what they're called really. I'm sure someone in the chat here is going to pop up in a minute and tell me what that is. But basically, they kind of almost are a square block, and then you can actually see the actual like little S shape of the actual fuse that can blow on there. And then that from that point there is you can take a look, and that's how you check it. Where the ATCs, you got to actually pull out and look at the little fuse on there. But you see, there's a whole bunch of relays in there. In my opinion, there's a lot of crap underneath that box that is going to be somewhat of a problematic area. Now, what should you do? What can you do then? If you're under the fuse box and you want to tap off power, John, what do we do then? Why do we do it? Okay, well, guess what? The reason that I wanted to show the fuse box is because underneath the box on that edge there, look at all those posts. And I'll tell you what, here's the neat part about all those posts. Wham! They are actual positive terminal posts of constant power. Alrighty, constant power underneath there. So as you see there, the wires and the cables are coming in from the battery or other parts on there that is feeding that thing, or they're going out on there. And this is going to be a great spot to be able to connect your power source to. Couple reasons. Excuse me. Couple reasons here we guys got here. Sorry, it's been a warm day today, and my dust and everything like that has been really messing me up. The humidity. But here's a great reason why this is a great place to tap off it. It's not tampering with anything. You're not directly connecting it to the battery a positive post on there, because then if you got to change the battery, then that whole thing there, and then how do you do it? Do you how do you attach it? Do you do it? Yeah, you don't need to worry about. Look at, you can get a ring terminal or a spade terminal on here, and you can do it and you can connect. Now, what I'm doing is this picture I'm showing you here is actually if you're standing at the front of the vehicle looking back towards, okay, the driver's side, you're going to see that second post in. Okay, that didn't have a nut on it. It didn't. But all I simply had to do was go down to my local hardware store and then find out the right size nut. And now, guess what? I have something to be able to fasten down a power source to. So as you see there, it's jumpered over from the other one. That is a constant B plus source. So in other words, power from the battery is going directly to that. So that's a nice place to tap off of for power right there. Once again, if the battery's got to be changed, my radio wiring's not going to be interfered with it. I'm going to be able to run it off the side, so the cover's going to go back on nice and tight. I am not going to have any worries or concerns in regards to getting a good source or good B positive post location on there. That to me is the biggest thing, because I'm looking for the best, the cleanest, the most non-obtrusive type of power source in my vehicle there. And that is, wow, boom, right there. It's perfect for that post on there. But John, hey, you got the positive post. What about the grounding post? Well, guess what? On the side, okay, not too far from where we mounted our antenna in the last series, look at these beautiful devices right here. They actually have grounding lugs built into the frame of the vehicle. So now all I have to do is guess what? Take my grounding and unscrew this this post right here, put my grounding connection right there, screw it back down. I don't have to worry about drilling into the frame. I don't have to worry about finding this and this and this. Boom. This is a nice ground for the radio, for the power source that I need. Alrighty? Really simple, really easy. And that, I say, is another big testament. Because once you find your power source, which that can be a daunting task on its own. Let's face it, a ground is a ground is a ground if it's a good ground, okay? And, I've had vehicles where I had to literally screw something right in the middle. Take a self-tapper screw and go in it. I don't want to do that. Because, first of all, you think about it this way. What is actually ground on there? What is going to be grounded out? Is it just a ground for that area there? Like, for example, some cars, the hoods or the trunks, they are only, that's it. That's the only metal that they have there. When they connect to the rest of the car, they're insulated out from one another. So this really adds a lot of a lot easy. Because I'll tell you what, if they're using this for a ground for a power source too, this is going to be a good ground. So there you go. That's the great part about it is, we'll go back up there. There's your B post. Take it right off the top there. That's terminal screw right there. You unscrew it, put your ring terminals on there. And when you're putting a power source for whether it be ground or positive on there, don't be afraid. I like the ones that are the heat shrink crimp on there. And if I can't find heat shrink crimp, what I will actually do is I'll get crimp. I'll put a dab of solder Okay, just heat it up a little bit, put a little dab of solder just where that wire is going to almost stick out past the little crimp part, and then I will go ahead and pre-plant and put a shrink wrap tubing around there or tape it down or something. So it kind of has a good weather sealed connection the best that I can. Almost like what's in these pictures here. Same thing with the grounding post. The grounding post I'm going to make sure is, and this is kind of an important one, I'm not going to be too big with my ring terminal, but I want to make sure I'm sufficiently covered. Because as you see here, a couple of these are like almost fastened together. So what I could do is if possible, I could take them apart, put the one cable on, put the ring terminal on, put that other cable on, and then tighten that thing down. Tighten that thing down as best as I can on there. If I really can't or I'm concerned, I could put the ring terminal on top of it. Like I said, a bunch of different ways on there, but weather sealing and weatherproofing it because we're in that engine compartment on there. Now, let's talk about running power wires. We're not talking, you have to have a fail-safe, okay? And you got to think ahead, let's put it that way. For two reasons. One, these days, the power cables on radios that come with radios and stuff, they're not very long whatsoever. They're not going to run from your standard trunk to your standard battery compartment in there, unless you happen to have the battery in the back. Like I had a charger that had the battery in the trunk. Great, not a problem there with the power connections whatsoever. But if it's a car or something up, like here in the truck, it's a 4-door truck. The power's up all the way in the front. I got to get through into the firewall, into the cab, and run it from there. But then also, too, is when you run your wires, you got to remember, you want to be able to protect the source. And that's what I said, protect the source. So where those wires connect to your positive source. So in other words, looking back at this B post here, right up to here, right to that B post, I want to make sure, B positive post I should say, or B positive feed post, I want to make sure I have something close to it. So in case when I'm running that wire through the firewall, for some reason if I nick that wire, or after wear and tear it nicks that wire, well, if I go long and nick it and it shorts out, well, if I have the fuses all the way by the radio, guess what? From that to the battery is unprotected. But if I have the fuses right near the battery, or in this case, this B positive post, guess what? I'm good to go. Now, you might ask that. It's like, okay, well then, okay, so I'll put the fuses there. You want to go one step further. Radios these days, especially digital radios that have vocoders, and well, let's face it, any sort of radio now that has electronic components that acts like a computer, you really need to protect it. So here's one of the ways that I've found through many years to be able to protect that wiring or that battery source. And that is with what I call and is known as a resettable circuit breaker. So as you see here, yes, I borrowed the pictures off of the internet there. You have one side that is going to go ahead and be the load side or the feeder side, and then you have the one side that's going to go ahead and be your B plus terminal, your power side. However, depending which one you get is the wording that they use. Sometimes people say load, which will be like your radios, and then feed, which would be coming off the battery on there. Now, is it a one-way directional? No, it's not, but they have it set up just kind of like that. And as you can see, this is what we call a resettable circuit breaker. So happens to be a 100 amp and a 200 amp. I have a 100 amp one because I'll tell you why here in a moment. And what it is that the power is going to come there and it's going to connect right into there, and that circuit breaker is going to trip in two instances. Instance number one is going to be when it hits the amperage that it's supposed to trip at. So in other kids, bottom right picture is 100 amp, top left is 200 amp. Once it hits that, hey, the 100 amp hits 100 amps, boom, it's going to pop, and that little red lever is going to pop right on out. Now, it is resettable, so as you see there, there's a red push button that he's kind of pushing in the picture, and then that will also pop out that little red lever. What that means is you can take now this circuit breaker and you can break the connection or break the feed at any time you want. Now, why would this be important? This is really important. I will tell you this. If you have to jump your vehicle, power pack, another car, something like that on there, guess what? Your battery's dead. When it come back on, it's going to draw a lot of voltage. It's going to draw a lot of amp on there. It's going to want to go ahead and start to recharge itself because it's pretty low. If you're jumping something, I guarantee you, you're going to send voltage spikes down there. You don't know what's going on. So, hey, if I need to jump a vehicle, I don't know what's going to come down that electrical cable, and I don't want to take a risk at it. I don't want to damage my equipment. So anytime I need to jump my truck for some reason, anytime I need to jump someone else, whether I'm the jumper or the jumpee, or better yet, when I'm going and taking my vehicle in for service and I don't want the service people playing with the radio or something like that, I pop this resettable circuit breaker. It will disengage or stop the flow of electricity, DC voltage, to those devices. So hey, great deal. Great deal to have on there. I wholeheartedly believe in them, from building the days into a squad car, ambulances, all those kind of things like that. Put a resettable circuit breaker in there. It's going to save you in the long run. Like I said, I've known people, they've had a nice radio, they directly connected to the battery, they had to jump the car for some reason, that radio went zzz, and it fried. Okay, and it fried. And there's no one who's going to repair a fried radio, whether it be because of lightning or whether it be because of a voltage spike or surge on there. Now, here's what I'm saying. I run everything off of the battery that I can and go directly to the battery. So, am I going to hook up multiple wires to this resettable circuit breaker, or am I going to set up one wire? And I set up one wire. And here's why I set up one wire: because I run my power wire from that resettable circuit breaker into the cab or the body of the truck or the car, or however you're going to do it, to this little magnificent, amazing device. This is a trailer wiring harness junction box. So as you see there, all the little screw posts on there, it comes with the nuts and everything like that. They are the different colors represented and wiring harness colors for, let's say, a trailer. So you have a boat trailer that you need to change a plug on, from the standard, four pin connector to like the circular one, whatever the case may be. This is where this junction box will come in great handy, and they're not that expensive. But you're saying, okay, so it's a box. Who cares? What's the big deal, John? Who gives a crap, right? I mean, when I tell people about this, in this way, that's what I get. Like, who gives a crap? But here's why. I now can take this box, mount this box anywhere, under the seat, in a center console, anywhere I can get that power wire to. And as you see, it actually has open rubber grommet holes, or you can actually, there's like a closed one that you can kind of cut into. Now what I could do is I come into that box with my positive and my negative wire. And as you see on there, yes, there are 7 terminals, so odd duck out. So I usually leave the center one disconnected. But then what I do is I will actually jumper the terminals together. So let's say, for example, I'll have my positive wire come in. I'll put that on the green post, and then I make a jumper from the green to the brown, and then I make a jumper from the brown to the blue. Now, what the nice part about that is that now I can attach multiple devices, and they almost can have their own pole or post if they want to, or it would be very minimal. So, for example, the green, the brown, and the blue. Maybe if I'm attaching a couple radios, maybe I'm attaching a power inverter, maybe I'm attaching this and this and this, guess what? Now I can go ahead and just jumper off there, and then I'm like trying to squeeze like 7 or 8 different green terminals on there and everything like that. I have it, and I can fan out that power distribution on there. Same thing on the other side. So I'll go connect the ground to the yellow, the black, and then the silver, jumper them all over like that. Boom. It is done, and it is amazing. Because, like I said, you're wiring all these together. And when you're wiring all these connections together, like I said, that's the biggest thing. Because if you need to change or something like that on there, if you need to add something or whatever, now if you have them all together, guess what they're all going to do? They're going to all fly off. Yeah, it's just a nightmare. I like to keep this nice and clean. But, now here, think of this, guys. Think of the gals. This box is like basically taking, and we're doing an umbilical because we're taking the heavy-duty power wire from this box, going to that power terminal source, okay, in the engine compartment. We only have 2 wires, if you count the positive and the negative wire, coming in off of that resettable circuit breaker to this distribution box. Now I don't have to run additional power cables all through there, okay? That's one thing I hated about vehicle installs, is that, especially like doing law enforcement ones, where when I did them back in the day, it was like the radio, the laptop computer, the radar unit, the power for the cage switch, all these kind of things like that. Now what you do is you just run this box in there. That is your focal point, or that is your terminal point, where you can go ahead and connect everything together, and you're going to be good to go. Alrighty, well, as I said, kind of a short and simple, sweet episode tonight. Once again, stupid shipping and everything like that. We didn't get our parts in time there. But I'm going to hook this up. I won't do another video on this. I'll just hook it up. We'll show it as we start to move down our installation series. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start looking at where we can hide and mount those control heads, hide those radio bodies, run those microphones, all those kind of things like that on there. So I want to wish everybody it's warm. I don't know where you're at, but it's pretty warm here. It looks like it's going to be pretty warm over the week here. So I want everybody to stay safe and stay cool. And if you have a fine cigar, make sure you sit back and you enjoy it. But then also make sure you keep an eye on that humidor, because with those humidities, it could throw that temperature of the humidor off. So there's our cigar talk. Until then, everybody, take care and thanks for watching.